Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are listening from and when you are listening. And welcome to another episode of the Discover Together podcast. Continuing our narrative of tracking Jesus from the Old Testament, we are going to pick up on a very interesting one. This is the dream Jacob had. Genesis 28 from verses 10 through to 17. The context of this is Jacob had just scammed his brother and he had been sent on the run by Rebekah because his brother was planning to kill him. He went on a run. And on his way to his uncle at Laban, who by the way turned out to be a 1,000 times more of a scam artist than he was. You know, where I'm from, they say if a con man dies, it's only con men that attends the funeral. But it was while he was on the way to his uncle, he had this dream. I pick it up. 28:10 of Genesis. Now Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. There the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your descendants. Also your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and to the south. And in you and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. How does this relate to Christ, for crying out loud, I hear you ask? What does a ladder have to do with Jesus? Well, let's take it slowly. There is an antitype of this story or of this event in Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel. So this was an attempt of men trying to build an altar that will get to heaven. So a type of getting to God by works, effort, toil. And what was the result in that instance? The result was there was confusion and disunity. On the other hand, in this story, however, it was God himself setting up a ladder on the earth. It's interesting. So this connection to God, the human heart cries out for. God is more eager to give it to us than we are to get it. But sometimes our pride gets in the way and we say, no, we want to build this Tower of Babel to you. Meanwhile, God has a ladder that he's ready to set down. Now that ladder is symbolic of God re-establishing a link between himself and his separated creation. Remember, he said the ladder was set up on the earth, its top reached to heaven. So there was a link between heaven and earth by virtue of this ladder. Angels were ascending and descending on it. And God spoke. Where did God speak from? He spoke from above the ladder. Now that's a very interesting parallel, because you would see the link subsequently when we get to why this is a picture of Christ. Because Christ himself used this analogy when he was speaking to Nathanael. So let's go to John chapter 1. John 1, and we go to 51. Well, just for context, I'll start from 43, just for context. 43 to 49 doesn't really add much to our discourse, but just for context. The following day, 43, John 1:43, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered and said to him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered and said to him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered and said to him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Most assuredly, I say to you, you shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Do we see the imagery? So that ladder the angels of God were ascending and descending upon was Christ. So in him there is an unparalleled link between heaven and earth in a way that there has not been since Adam fell. So with this in mind, we can compare and contrast both. Now in Jacob's dream, note that God spoke from above the ladder. So even if that link was there, there was still that separation, because God was speaking from above the ladder. Jacob and the rest of mankind were below. So something like Ecclesiastes will say, I believe, Ecclesiastes 5:2-3. It said, God is in earth, God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Makes that distinction very clear. God is all the way up there, and you are all the way down here. In the dedication of the temple, when Solomon is praying over and over again, he says, "Hear from heaven and do. Hear from heaven and do." But Jesus Christ, on the other hand, and the whole of the New Testament, is God speaking on earth. So the same God that spoke from above the ladder in Jacob's dream is now below the ladder, thanks to Jesus Christ. So now, irrespective of the position, he remains God, whether it's from above the ladder or below the ladder. So even while he was on earth, Jesus told his audience, he said, "Look, I am from above and you are from below." But in Jesus, heaven and earth combine. The heavenly God now has a conduit, a ladder which he set up to reach the earth. And that's a very important fact to bear in mind, that a relationship with God has to be on his own terms. You know, said the law was given by Moses. You see the distance there, John 1:17. The law was given by Moses. The law was given by Moses. So from the UK, I can send a parcel to somebody in Australia. I've given him something. Even if there is a 3-day journey by flight. 2 or 3 days. But what does John 1:17 say of grace and truth? It says grace and truth came in the person of Jesus. So do we see that parallel between both sides of the ladder again? The law of Moses was given by Moses. Obviously, we know God gave those laws through Moses. So that's essentially God speaking from the top of the ladder. But grace and truth sorry, can't speak. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. There's a personality there. So the law was written on tablets of stone. You can't have a relationship with a stone. And if you do, you probably need to speak to somebody about it. But grace and truth came in the person of Jesus. So Jesus is a person. Grace and truth is a person. And you can have a relationship with a person. So that is him speaking from below the ladder at our level. Even if in both instances, he remains fully God. So a relationship with God has to be on his terms. You can't Tower of Babel your way to God. That would only result in confusion. So that's why there are some world views, for instance, that will tell you everything except how to get to God, except how you can be right with God. They'll say, oh, live like this, live like that, live like this, live like that, live like this, live like that. How do you get to God? Well, we don't know. At the end of the day, God throws a dice, and if you are lucky, you get in. If you are unlucky, you stay out. But Jesus says, I am the way. He's the link. No one comes to the Father except through me. So if you want to get to the true God, you must come through that ladder. Again, pulling from the theme of the ark in our last episode. This was something God did entirely of his own volition. The ladder was set down entirely of God's volition. There was nothing men did to spur God into letting down that ladder. Romans 11 puts it beautifully. It says, and if by grace, it is no longer of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. But if it is of works, it is no longer grace. Otherwise, work is no longer work. So in getting to God, it cannot be a combination of the two. It has to be one or the other. And that righteousness by faith theme is here as well. One ladder, one ark. One conduit between heaven and earth. One ark, which is salvation out of condemnation. And that conduit is the ladder upon which angels were ascending and descending. And that ladder is symbolic of the man, Jesus Christ. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.